Hi folks, my name's Tom. You're watching Rant District. If you can hear music in the background, this is a local Portland punk band called Help. Album is called 2053 or 2053. This is a record that came out this year. Pre-ordered it, took a long time for it to come out, but excellent local Portland punk. Came with the insert, words as they like to say, and shot of the band. So anyway, I wanted to do a video about how to successfully leave negative feedback for a seller on Discogs. I know this is kind of a particularly focused topic. I'm not going to go into the whole Discogs marketplace ecosystem. I may do something about that in the future. But it's just something I had to go through recently, so I wanted to talk about this. How to successfully leave negative feedback for a Discogs seller. Now, you have to go into the marketplace ecosystem of Discogs a bit here. Most sellers will have a very high feedback rating because negative, retaliatory feedback, when you leave a negative for a seller, is almost a guaranteed thing. It's just an element of the marketplace. So if you leave a negative feedback for a seller, you're probably getting negged in return. So therefore, it's rare for a seller to get a negative feedback on the Discogs platform. As such, when you're shopping for records on Discogs, if a seller has a rating of 99.6, 99.5 or less, you might go, oh wow, that's a great feedback rating. It's not. It's a red flag. Now, of course, there are always exceptions. Read the feedback. Take a look at what the feedbacks are. Maybe the negatives were ridiculous. But usually what you'll see is when somebody's got less than a perfect rating as a seller, they probably also have a lot of neutral feedbacks that were left for them. Neutrals, you have to read them as negatives. I think a lot of people there's more neutrals left than negatives. People do it because they hope to not get retaliatory feedback, but you're probably getting it for that too. So anyway, the goal of leaving a negative feedback really is not to take out your frustrations. You don't want to be emotional about it, even though the word negative tells you there was a negative vibe about this whole interaction. Basically you just want to don't do it to be a jerk. Do it because you're trying to inform other buyers of what to look out for with a particular seller. So look out for sellers, below 99.5, 99.6. Those are red flags, but even when you see that, read the feedbacks. You should also even read over the positives, because sometimes you'll see negative feedback kind of subtly left in the positive reviews. Always check feedback on the seller before you make a purchase. So a couple of things. If you get something that's inspires a negative feeling in you, and you want to, you have a problem with an order as a buyer, and you want to resolve it, before you leave negative feedback, part of the terms and conditions of Discogs is that you must try to resolve any problem with the seller through the order page on Discogs. Don't do it in private emails. Everything needs to be on the order page, because when something comes up and staff needs to investigate it, the order page is all they have to go by. So everything gets left on the order page. So you need to try to resolve things with the seller first. Now, just if the seller resolves things, some people think, well, if the seller resolves it, you're not allowed to leave a negative feedback. And that's not something that's written anywhere. If the totality of the situation was a negative for you, and you feel justified in leaving a negative feedback, and you know how to do it properly, do it. But really, don't do it to be a jerk. Do it because it's really warranted, and it's hard to warrant it, and you're really trying to look out for other people. The thing to know about leaving negative feedback on Discogs is, number one, try to resolve it with the seller first on the order page. If you still, after trying to resolve it, are unable to, or the resolution is not to your satisfaction and you want to leave a negative, it is critically important that the feedback you leave, along with all your conversations on the order page, need to be unemotional and factual. Strip, anything that's, jerk or idiot or you lied, don't use those words. Don't use inflammatory words. So on the order page, keep it simple, keep it calm, keep it direct and to the point. Nothing inflammatory, no inflammatory language, no opinion, just the facts of the situation. When you're leaving feedback needs to be, the feedback you leave, you got to leave it in such a way that it can't get removed. So that means, again, you don't call anybody names in the feedback. You just present the facts of what happened, and you can leave a negative. And that's it. No name calling, no this is an idiot or a scammer, nothing. Now, this all sounds relatively simple, but then the next step is you're gonna get retaliatory feedback. It's almost a guarantee. That's just part of the ecosystem. And as a seller, you don't want to have negative feedback as a seller, because if a buyer can set a certain feedback rating percentage below which you're not able to buy for them. So if you have like a 98% rating as a buyer, but the seller has set their threshold at 99%, like they won't sell to anybody below 99% rating, you're not going to be able to buy from that seller. So you need to protect your rating as a buyer. So now that I've told you how to leave the feedback, the next step is how to remove the negative feedback that almost certainly you will receive. So when the negative comes in, you need to, I'm not going to go with the step-by-step what to click on, and although next to the feedback there's a little downward facing triangle, you click on it, it says request review of the feedback, and you explain why it should be removed. I would say it's retaliatory, and if anything warrants it being removed, to remove it. So I recently bought from a Canadian seller, and it was a reggae record, and I forgot how it was advertised. It was either near mint minus or VG plus. I think it was near mint minus, which on a reggae record I interpret to be VG plus. So what I wrote, I got a little note here. The feedback I left ultimately was sent wrong record in lesser than advertised condition after I asked seller to check before sending. So when I placed the order, I had put a note on the order page saying, please make sure the version of the record and the advertised condition, according to Goldmine, and that's what the Goldmine rating system is what Discogs use. Please make sure the item version and the advertised condition are correct before sending. So they sent me the wrong version and in lesser condition. I mean, I didn't mention in the feedback, but it was like, not only was it less than VG plus, I mean, it was like the last half of the second side was literally like bacon frying would be less loud than the amount of surface noise that was there. So I put in sent wrong record in lesser than advertised condition after I asked seller to check before sending. Said would only refund return shipping cost if I sent untracked internationally, meaning I'd have no proof of return. So the seller was being a jerk. They didn't want me to send it tracked because then I would have proof that they received the return. Sending it untracked and sending back to Canada, it's like $20, cheapest way, so I negged them. I'm not gonna. It was not worth it at that point to send it untracked, because losing $20 on return shipping when the seller could easily say they didn't receive the record was more than half the cost of the record. So anyway, the seller retaliated. I got feedback that said, in all caps, "Avoid terrible buyer, total scammer." So I submitted a feedback review request that said, "Feedback for me violated the following guidelines: slander or libelous and insulting language, name-calling, personal insults, and feedback containing words such as liar, thief, scam artist, bad person. Please remove this negative feedback." So, this was the only negative on my feedbacks that was keeping me from having 100% seller or buyer rating, rather. I do sell now and then on Discogs, and for what it's worth, my seller rating is 100%. I've never gotten a neg. I've never had to even fight one. Now Discogs is very slow, so you kind of have to have the courage to leave a negative feedback, because you are going to get a retaliatory negative. So you need to know that you try to resolve things calmly and rationally on the order page. You need to know that you left calm, factual only feedback on the the negative feedback that you left, and that you gave a rational reason, and a reason for having feedback removed. Could be just, it was retaliatory. So, the record over? That side's over. Hang on just a minute. So anyway, over the years, I've had 5 feedbacks left for me as a buyer, and I've had them all removed successfully, because I know how to leave. I know how to try to resolve the order first, and I generally try to, resolve issues first. Most sellers on Discogs are extremely easy to work with, and most of them are record lovers, so it's like, they understand where you're coming from. Some are not. So anyway, you have to have kind of the stones to leave the negative feedback in the first place, because you got to know the feedback that you left is solid. You got to know that you try to resolve it on the order page correctly, and you got to have the courage to wait, because Discogs reviewing things is slow. The first request I put in, after like 8 or 9 days, the request just disappeared for the request for feedback removal. I ended up just putting in another one, and after about 2.5 weeks from the start, ultimately it got removed. So, and I knew it would, because I know how to leave feedback. I know how to try to resolve an order. I know how to keep emotion out of things. I know that's you wouldn't think so, but I know how to do this. So anyway, it should be rare that you leave negative feedback for somebody. When you do, know how to do it, and know how to fight the retaliatory feedback that you're going to get. If you're a member of the vinyl community and you're on Discogs as a buyer or a seller of both, straight up, your feedbacks as a buyer and as a seller should both be 100%. You should be, and by vinyl community, I mean, if you're in the vinyl community as like a community member, not like a brand in the vinyl community, where you're part of the content creator club, where you're just spewing out content. People that are in this for the community, you're, as a seller rating and as a buyer rating, you should be 100%, or pretty freaking close. I mean, things happen, but it should be at a minimum. If you're selling, and you're a VC member, when a problem comes up, you should be looking out for the other person, because you got to treat them the way you would want to be treated. And as a buyer, I think you should expect to be treated the way you would treat somebody. Anyway, that's a long story longer. Thanks for watching. Hope everybody's well. Catch you later.